Alan Lowe. How are you today?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Good. So I've met you in passing here at Good Vibes. Huge thanks to Mike Good Vibes for allowing people to come in here and do things like this, firstly. But I don't know much about you.
All right.
I did an interview with Peter Johnson not too long ago. Did you happen to see that one?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And, I was mentioning in that interview, I'm not a resident of Palm Coast, so I don't have a dog in the fight. I just want really my platform to be available to people who want to come on and talk and show kind of their side without it being a I gotcha session. Fair enough?
Sure.
Okay. So just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I moved here in 1983, 41 years ago.
Oh, wow.
To go to work for my dad, who was a builder, not a developer, single-family homes. And I just really never left. Palm Coast has provided me with an amazing living. It's a beautiful city, and my goal is to keep it that way.
Yeah. So you came here. How old were you when you came here?
12.
Where'd you guys move from?
I moved from Maine.
Oh, okay.
One end of the country to the other.
Yeah, in Maine it gets cold, so it was kind of a thing.
I still have issues with the heat here sometimes.
Oh,
I've 41 years. I'm still not acclimated. And, at night I got the AC turned down as low as I can get it. I got a fan on me, and my wife's freezing to death, but I'm comfortable.
That's fantastic. Now, is your wife from here too, or not?
No, my wife's from. That's one of the reasons I got into the whole politics scene here.
Yeah.
My wife is from Germany.
Oh, really?
She grew up in Leipzig, Germany, on the other side of the wall, on the communist side.
Oh, wow.
During the whole Cold War thing, while it was occupied by the Russians and all of that, and so she understood the bread lines. In order to get a driver's license over there was a 15-year waiting period.
What?
If you wanted to buy a car, you couldn't buy a new car. You could only get a used car. It'd be a 10-year waiting period. And they had what they called the Stasi, which were spies that were watching everybody, and they would turn in to get, extra bread in the bread lines and stuff. And all of this she was telling me when we were during our lockdown here during COVID. And I'm looking around and she's saying, I ran away from this stuff, but I ran right back into it.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, well, I got to get involved.
Okay. That is crazy to think that there's people who actually live through that, honestly. Yeah. And you're connected to one. So that's really interesting. I have some experience with German. I took German in high school. My sister was born in Germany.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my dad was stationed over there.
Military.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of cool. She's like, oh, I'm born in Germany. But what are some of the things that she was thinking would happen as a result of like COVID and stuff? Like she saw the lockdowns. Did she think it would get worse, more to resemble Germany?
She thought that, because she lived through it, her immediate instinct goes back to the under the thumb type of control that she grew up in.
Yeah.
In fact, her brother tried to escape and he was caught. And they don't just punish the person, they punish the family. So she was studying at the time to be an accountant, and they came to her and said, you have two choices. You can now, theoretically for the rest of your life, because who knew the wall was coming down, right. You either are going to work in a textile factory or you're going to pack sardines in cans. Choose now. So she chose the textile company. But that type of life that she was forced into is what she was thinking when all of a sudden here we're forced into shut down businesses and all of the things that went along with COVID, no longer allowed to have in-person city council meetings. That was all being done by Zoom. So not everybody could stand up. And then, the thought came to her, well, maybe they're only allowing the people to stand up or people on Zoom that they want to get as, and she started, and she started running through all of this. And I said, well, there's no way to try to stop anything like this from the outside. Yeah. Have to get inside. And then as I studied and I thought about it, and I thought about Palm Coast and the life that it's given me and everything, and the change that at that moment we saw coming, I jumped in.
Okay. So that was the antithesis, so to speak, to getting you into the political sphere.
Yeah, that was the spark, and then of course it exploded from there.
And you can't go back.
No, there's no going back now.
So, like, I'm curious though. We saw with COVID the limited freedoms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have more that you would like to expand as far as freedoms go? How does that look for you?
Well, you know, one of the things that people, and it's a double-edged sword, but one of the things that people have discovered as Palm Coast has progressed along is it's becoming more and more HOA-like.
Yeah.
And Palm Coast is not an HOA, but it's HOA-like. And I'm not saying that the code rules that we have don't maintain the beauty of the city,
Sure,
because they do. But some of it is, you know, a little bit overboard.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, I have said this many times, I'll say it again. I think we have the 4 districts, you know, of Palm Coast, 1 through 4.
Okay.
Might get 2 more once they really get going on the westward expansion. We might get 2 more city council, but right now we got 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking that we should get 2 people, a business owner and a non-business owner, whatever that position might be,
Sure.
from each of the districts, put them together in a volunteer type position, and go through all the codes.
Yeah.
And having a business eye and a resident eye, and weed out the stuff that's just not working for us anymore. Because we adopted the code that ITT put in place in 1973, and things have changed.
Okay, tell me more about the ITT. You know, I didn't grow up here. I'm from St. Louis originally. I was a cop there for 12 years. I came here about 2 years ago, so you have that knowledge. So talk to me like I have no background in Florida, which I really don't. So lay that on me.
Well, so I moved here in 1983. And back then, I think the population of Palm Coast was somewhere around 5,000.
Yeah.
Now we're cresting 100,000. So there's been a huge change since when I moved here. So ITT, International Telephone and Telegraph, decided to become developers.
Okay.
And they partnered with a man, last name is Levitt.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually it was either ITT Levitt or Levitt ITT. I forget what which way it was in the very beginning. But they bought all of this property, and if memory serves me correctly, they paid $6 an acre way back then. And they bought, but then they had to do all the infrastructure and the digging of the canals and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, ITT built the infrastructure and started Palm Coast. And they had their own construction companies and so forth, Palm Coast Homes or Palm Coast Realty or IT, I forget what it's called, too many years ago.
Sure.
Anyway, they had that, but then they allowed other builders in to, you know, at that time it was all just single family homes, really. There were no apartments going on and stuff like that. There were a few. I mean, you got Woodhaven's Fairways, Palm Club, and Shangri-La. I think that was the extent of all of that. And everything else was single family homes.
Sure.
And it was really moving along at a nice, slow pace. It was able that the infrastructure was new, but they were able to maintain infrastructure with growth.
Yeah.
And then right around 1999, the beginning of, well, it was 1999, there was a vote to become a city.
Okay.
So ITT had sold to Centex Homes, and then they sold to Lowe's, I believe. Not Lowe's, but a big giant company called Lowe's that's not Lowe's.
Not the box store.
Not the box store.
Okay.
And unfortunately, my name is not on any of the branches of those. So, you know, my family's a bush, not a tree.
I see.
So I don't have the branches.
When you were saying my name's not on any of those, I'm like, what does he mean? Oh, your last name.
My last name, Lowe.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it transitioned into the city that we are now, and still went along pretty good. But then people discovered that Palm Coast is a diamond in the rough. And we have the beaches right next door. We have Jacksonville. We have Orlando. We have Daytona. We have everything within a quick drive from right here.
Okay.
And so developers began to come in, and instead of just the occasional single family home built by small builders, it exploded into, you know, developments.
Yeah.
And I got nothing against development. If you own a piece of land, you have the right to do with it.
Sure.
Within reason, within the laws of what it was. But we began to grow so fast, and we're at that point now that we have grown beyond, or are about to go beyond, the capacity of our infrastructure. And our infrastructure now is 50 years old.
Okay.
Yesterday, there was a water main break on Hargrove.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, so there are small failures starting to happen, and we need to identify that, fix it, and modernize our infrastructure. The problem we have is and I'm going to come right out and say it, we've had a lack of leadership, proper leadership, since the building boom started several years ago, in that they never put any thought or understanding into budgeting money, setting aside money, making escrow accounts or whatever they kind of call it, to take care of these issues of the swale maintenance and the infrastructure maintenance and whatever flooding issues that we might have and all that. We've just had a general budget, and we've just been I shouldn't say blowing, because it's been spent on the projects required, but nothing for the other stuff that's coming. And right now, we're running into a problem where our water treatment plants, sewer treatment, are reaching maximum capacity.
Really?
And when we reach maximum capacity with the plants that we have now, they won't be able to issue any more permits. You won't have to worry about where people are calling for moratoriums and stuff, because it'll just end until there's a new water treatment plant. And the issue we have there, if you think about it, and I haven't heard anybody else talk about this, but here's the huge issue that we're about to run into that's going to require some strong leadership to take care of, and that is that we have our Representative Paul Renner, who is also Speaker of the House in Tallahassee. We have Governor DeSantis, right? Well, Paul Renner comes from here, and DeSantis comes from here. So we sort of had an in with going up there and saying, hey, we need appropriations for money for this project, that project, whatever. They're termed out.
Yeah.
They're about to go out of office, and we don't know who's going to go in office, but they're probably most likely not governor and representative from here.
Okay.
So we won't have that easy, and I shouldn't say easy, but a better foot when we walk up there to ask for help with our appropriations for infrastructure and stuff as we have in the past.
Sure.
So we're going to need to take strong steps to make sure that we can survive on our own.
Yeah.
And so far we haven't been.
So when you're talking about like the water treatment plants or the sewer system, it's at maximum capacity?
Not yet.
Almost.
But it's almost, yes.
Okay. So what do you do in that situation?
You got to build another one. But where's the money come from?
Yeah, like you can't build it on credit.
No, we have a problem with credit. We have good credit as a city, but we already have debt. We have there's two numbers that I've been told now. I know that we had $220 million. Okay, back up a second.
Sure.
We have, by charter, we need to have a balanced budget for the general fund of the city. So when you hear the city say we have no debt, just close your ears.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a balanced budget. Okay, no debt in the general fund.
Sure.
Then we have the enterprise fund for the utilities, right? And back when POMCO started, there wasn't really enough money to buy all the utilities and set everything up as a city. So we sold bonds, and roughly $220 million worth of bonds. Well, then there was some issues, and they took the bonds and paid back their investors, and Center State Bank, we got a loan for the amount of the bonds, roughly $220 million. Well, that's a debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that it's been paid down from $220 million to $80 million.
Okay.
I don't have any evidence of that other than somebody told me that. At any rate, there's still $80 million worth of debt that we owe. Then we need, and I don't know how much a water treatment plant would cost, somewhere between $30 and $50 million probably.
Okay.
But in order to stem the shutdown of permit issues because of a lack of infrastructure, that has to be built. And because Paul Renner and Governor DeSantis, our heirs in Tallahassee, are going to be gone, it's going to take some strong leadership here to work and negotiate here to make up for that shortfall.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that DeSantis, Paul Renner, you're saying they're from this area?
They lived here.
Really?
I'm not sure exactly where Governor DeSantis grew up, so to speak, but he did live here. And Paul Renner was from Jacksonville, I believe,
Okay.
but then here. So they are extremely familiar with our issues
Yeah.
that we have here in Palm Coast.
Fine. So if I can summarize what I think you're saying is the growth that has happened is just outpacing whatever we're able to offer
Yes.
the people that are coming here. Now the growth, you know, I came kind of towards the end of COVID as it relates to shutdown, so to speak. But the growth, has it been happening for a while? You said this was a gym.
It's not a new
Yeah.
phenomenon. And some people are saying that the growth isn't even as fast as it was prior to 2008,
Okay.
just before the bubble.
Yeah.
I see acres and acres and acres and acres of land clear cut. I didn't see that before. So is the growth faster or slower than it was back then? I don't know, but it's been growing. I mean, we were once the fastest growing city in the country.
Really?
So, and I think now we're at 2 or 3 fastest growing. So we're still growing fast.
Yeah.
What we haven't done is taken consideration of that heavy of a new load on the infrastructure that we have. And even though we may have given it lip service, we didn't do anything about it. And now the can is at the end of the road. We can't kick it any further.
So what do you think that's going to look like as it continues to grow? Like, you know, there's a lot of residential, one-story businesses and stuff that I've seen here. But is that going to change to account for the different people that are moving here, the amount of people? Or is just we won't have any open land anymore, it's just all developed?
Well, that's one of the things that I would, as mayor, insist that we maintain large swaths of green space. We have to. People moved here because of the quality of life here, not the quantity of houses.
Sure.
Right? They moved here for the quality of life, the trees, the amenities, all of these nice things that we have. And if we clear cut the place away and just build houses, we've lost that.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at another fact. The property west of Route 1 was previously owned by a lumberyard, Ryanair. They sold it, or they're selling it to us.
Yeah.
If you drive down the road and you look at the trees, you'll notice as you're driving, you'll all of a sudden get to an angle where all the trees are lined up. You can see the lines of trees, straight lines of trees. It's because they're all planted. It's not natural growth, right?
No.
So at some stage, they were scheduled to be cut down anyway, but they were going to be turned into lumber and then new trees planted and, keep the cycle going. What we're having now is they're clear cutting it and replacing it with a house or an apartment or something. And they're not preserving a lot, in my opinion, they're not preserving a large amount of green space. So if you drive around town, you see we've got deer running in the middle of the city, We've got, you see the roadkill everywhere. We've got armadillos that are, we're pushing them further and further out. And I'm not saying that this is a big animal city, but as we're pushing them further and further out, we're not taking into consideration what are we doing.
Yeah.
We should have green space between developments, and I don't know if you're familiar with Tidelands. It's a development by the marina down off Palm Harbor Parkway. If you drive by Tidelands, you don't see it. It's behind a tree berm, if you will, a green frontage.
Yeah.
If you drive by most of these other developments, you just see the houses.
Right.
If we had this 20, 50 foot, whatever wide green growth of space that's left natural between the road and the development, you have an area for animals to escape to, but you also preserve the green tree quality of life look that Palm Coast has, even though directly behind those trees you might have a massive development.
Sure.
But it's the aesthetics that brought people here, and it's the aesthetics that we have to maintain.
I can appreciate that. I lived in Palm Coast for like a year and a half. We were renting until we found our permanent house that we're in now in Ormond. But I relate specifically to what you're saying about deer. And they were kind of out at random times, but I would be walking my dog and there's just a deer walking down the road and it stopped and look at me and I look back at it. I'm like, is it going to run? And the dog starts barking.
Palm Coast used to be all trees and a swamp, right? Yeah. The canals, the saltwater canals, were dug and the dirt from the saltwater canals were put to the sides of the canals to build the land up enough to put houses on.
Okay.
So, you know, when we talk about Palm Coast, yeah, you can buy swampland in Florida, but it's not a swamp anymore, right? But what happens then is as you're building up and as you're building more, and your parking lots and your driveways and your houses, they all become impervious surfaces. So water can't come down and go in the ground. It has to come down and run off somewhere.
Oh.
So we have the swale system and all the drainage systems and everything that take the place of, you know, the ability for the ground to percolate water.
Oh.
So we have to maintain this stuff as we grow.
That's interesting. I had no idea of that.
Yeah.
But it was originally like swampland that they built on top of
Yes.
to actually make it where people can inhabit this area.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Huh. I learned something new.
Yes. And that's, you know, the problem with our swale system, you know, everything's aging, infrastructure's aging. We don't have enough people and machinery in our swale department to take care of all the swales in a timely manner. So, you know, there's two things you can do. You can have preventative maintenance or fix after failure.
Okay.
And because we have a lack of people, we're fix after failure.
Yeah, you have to go with the ladder in that case.
Right. And the problem that you run into then is if you want to hire more people and you want to do this and you want to do that and take care of all of these things, you got to find the money.
Yeah.
Right. And we can't keep digging into people's pockets for the money because we do have a fixed income based large portion of our population here. Retirees and so forth. And, you know, because they're not out working and making extra money, you know, it's hard for them. Every penny that comes out for taxes is a penny they can't use for their lifestyle, their food, their housing, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
So we have to be careful of digging too deep into somebody's pocket to the point where we end up into a situation of gentrification where only the rich people can live here and anybody that's not rich, goodbye, too bad.
Sure.
We have to find the balance for all of that without just saying, oh, we need money, increase the taxes. There has to be other ways and doing other things, and maybe directing funds from, instead of building a new $50 million sports facility, maybe we direct some money, not all of it. I mean, sports are important. It's an amenity, and I'm all for that, but we're reaching a critical mass. And once we take care of what we have, we can move forward after that. But we have to be careful.
I had a question as it relates to the swell system. So I don't know much about it, but you're saying they're kind of starting to fail. What do you mean? Like,
well, so we dig a ditch.
Yeah.
And it's a swale, but we dig a ditch.
It's a ditch.
It's a ditch. Right. And then we put our grass in it, you know, and the culverts under the driveways. And we have a system. They're saying, I remember back when my dad was building, that we would survey the swale before we got the certificate of occupancy, and it had to be tilted in the direction of wherever the water was to run to.
Okay.
Now they're saying, well, you know, it's not really to run the water off, it's to percolate the water down, which would be great if there wasn't 2 feet down a layer of clay, which is impervious mostly.
Right. Yeah.
So the water, that's why you see swales and they sit with water forever. Well, so we have a ditch and we put sod in it and we have the culverts under the driveways and so forth. But over time, you're mowing the grass goes in, it rains, silt and stuff from the roads wash in, and that perfectly shaped swale starts to flatten and get higher and come above the edge of the culvert on the driveway, and the culverts fill in, and then all of a sudden you've got no flowing system. So they have a department that goes out and reshapes the swales, resods the swales, cleans out the culverts and so forth.
The culvert's like the pipe under
the driveway, right? But we don't have enough to get everything in a timely manner. So some people have been waiting. I just had a person comment on one of my posts today. They've been waiting over 10 years to have their swale maintained.
10?
10 years. Now, I mean, that's what they told me.
That's great.
So 10 years. I know that lots of people have been waiting 5+ years.
Wow.
So we need to fix that. Otherwise, we're just going to have flooding. And then when you have all these flooding, you know, you have businesses that want to come here, but if they come here right after a rain, and they see yards flooded, roads flooded, washouts, things. It's not a good image.
Yeah, I'm thinking now, insurance. You actually have the flooding. Now it's going to increase the insurance for there. Now it's going to increase the cost of living for there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are issues that we need to tackle that we've been kicking the can on. And the current administration itself kicking the can. Now that we're entering an election season, you're hearing the rhetoric change. And they're now spouting what I've been spouting for a few years, which I'm happy to hear them do it. But I'm wondering that, who's going to continue with that after the election, And it needs to be a major priority is our infrastructure. It almost has to be the top priority because without it, everything else fails.
Interesting. Now with these swales and new builds and such, since the new builds are taking up space where the ground it was, so that rainwater or whatever can't
go down.
So now these swales are being overtaxed.
That's the more importance of the swale maintenance.
Yeah.
The new lots around Palm Coast, I'm not talking about west of Route 1, but our existing lots where you might have this house, and then there's an empty lot in between. That's called an infill lot, right? And granted, the water from these other two lots has always, probably gone into that empty lot.
Sure.
Then somebody comes along who owns that property and decides they want to build their house now. They have the absolute right to build their house, just like everybody else did.
Sure.
But the problem is that, and I don't know who started it, but somebody in the city decided we need to build the houses higher.
Yeah.
Without a reason to build them higher. They were asked about, are you doing it to follow some kind of FEMA flood map and so forth? And the answer from the previous city manager was, no, we're not following any flood map. So if you're not following any flood map and there's no statute or law for it, why are you coming in between two houses that are maybe 12 inches over the crown of the road and building a house that's 3 feet over the crown of the road?
Yeah.
There's a statute that says you cannot shed your water from your property onto your neighbor's property, but if your house is higher, it's going there.
Yeah.
So people are being flooded now because of that issue, and flooded bad. And so the city is now suddenly aware of it. And they're coming out, but they're telling some people that they need to put a mini swale, if you will, in their side yards, the existing property in their side yards.
They have to pay?
They have to pay,
no.
and not the guy that built the new house.
Built his house on the hill.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So for me, let's stop raising the height. If there is a flooded area, take that on a 1-by-1 basis. But in general, stop building these houses so high. I mean, the builder has to bring in dump truck after dump truck after dump truck of fill to make it go that high unnecessarily, which increases cost, right?
Yeah.
So stop that and follow the statutes that say you can't shed your water onto your neighbors.
Yeah.
But that's future. So for the past, the city allowed it.
Yeah.
The city's going to have to figure out some way to compensate the people and to build these little mini swales and do what they got to do to shed the water properly because the city's at fault.
Oh, I see. Now, here's a question. Like, as far as these builders going, is it potentially they're motivated to look out for their own client in building their property?
Well, that's a way in any business.
Yeah.
You're looking out for your own. But I'm not saying they're doing that because I'm 100% pro economic development.
Sure.
And so if somebody's a builder and they're employing tens, hundreds, who knows how many people to build the homes in their developments, I'm all for it. Jobs.
Sure.
But you have to pay attention to what's happening in the community from what you're doing with your job, right? So, like I said, if you're clear cutting out 20, 30, 40, 50, however many acres of land,
sure,
even though those trees may have been previously agricultural property to cut it down, if you're doing it and you're not replacing any green space and you're not maintaining the draw of the original quality of life for Palm Coast was the nature and all of that, if you're not paying attention to that, then you're changing the feel and the quality of life of the city,
Sure.
and maybe not for the best.
Sure. Now, what other things are you passionate about as far as infrastructure goes that we are lacking? I know we were talking about the sewer, the swales. What other things are really necessary to bring up to par for the current?
Well, one thing's our roads, our streets themselves. The streets are, the recent studies that have been done on the streets say that they too are about to go over the knife edge and cost more than the millions that it's already going to cost to repair. Right now, I believe we are, the last numbers I heard were about $33 million in arrears in our budget, not in arrears, but shortfall in our budget to maintain all the roads in Palm Coast. So, if we don't maintain them and they get worse, then instead of 30, maybe it's 60, maybe it's 100 million. You know, the problem is the current and previous administrations did not take the time to set aside for future maintenance.
Sure.
It's the same thing, you know, we have this pickleball Southern Sports facility that's off Belterre down behind the fire station.
Sure.
A couple years ago, when that was first proposed under Mayor Holland's administration, they were going to have 12 pickleball courts, 12 tennis courts, a stadium, a two-story stadium. There was going to be a physical therapy room on the top of this stadium. I mean, all kinds of stuff,
sure.
Right? And they were going to have, you know, world pickleball tournaments and world tennis tournaments at this facility. Don't pay attention to the fact that there's also one in Ormond.
Okay.
Okay, let's not think about that one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so they came up with this price that was 2 years old at the time that it was brought, and this was just after. Well, it was as COVID was waning. They were bringing this up, and so they were saying, you know, that they had done a survey, or a cost estimate, which was 2 years old, of about $20 million to build this thing. So I step up to the podium and I say, you know, you're talking pre-COVID numbers. Now supply chain has changed, prices have changed. Mm-hmm. You're now up to $30 or more million for this. And if you're going to build they wanted to do clay courts. If you build your clay courts, you have to roll these courts you have to brush the courts every time they're used. You have to roll like this portable manual steamroller thing over the clay courts to keep them flat. And you have to water them twice a day to keep everything congealed. Otherwise, they dry up, crumble up, and fall apart.
Wow.
So the water to do that comes from our water system. So every gallon they're dumping on the tennis court, they're not getting money for it to go through our faucets, right? As we pay for the utility. So every gallon there is a loss to the city. So I calculated all the numbers up, and I forget over a year how many millions it was. But, you know, yeah, we can build it with impact fee money. This whole facility could be built with impact fee money and grants and all that stuff. But the next day, after it's built, we have to take care of it. And that money doesn't come from impact fees and all that. So they redesigned the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take some credit for that, because I think I brought to their attention that there's an issue.
Right.
And they toned it down considerably, and they built the nice amenity that we have now.
So it's not clay courts, or is it?
No, it's not clay courts.
So clay courts, that to me sounds like something at a professional level.
It is. Well, they wanted to do the tournaments and everything. So everything was at a professional level, which is great if you got the money.
Right.
We don't have the money.
Do it anyway.
Yeah. And you got the facility in Ormond that's already doing that. Okay. So I can't remember the name of it because I don't play pickleball, but sure. And nothing against pickleball. I'm glad they built the facility.
I played one time. Go ahead.
There you go. I didn't get this by exercising. So, you know, but we have to look at things like that. Yeah, sure. It's great. It would be wonderful to have a splash pad in Holland Park that worked. But we're looking at $5 to $7 million to fix it while we sue the contractor and hopefully get paid back someday if he doesn't declare bankruptcy and disappear. You know,
it'd probably be easier for them to do that.
Of course it would be. But that's the things we have to look at. We can't just say, look, impact fees are going to cover the construction of this. The next day, impact fees aren't covering anything.
Yeah.
And we have to cover
the maintenance and upkeep and all that.
And that's massive. It's so massive, we don't have the money to do it for our roads, our swales, our sewer plant. The saltwater canals, for instance, I've been screaming about that for years because waterfront property has a higher property tax than non-waterfront property, right? Yeah. And everybody on the canals, it's the same way. Yes, I live on a canal, so you know, and I have a boat. My boat has never had a problem hitting ground or anything like that. So it's not an issue that directly affects me at this time. But I've done some videos and posted them on Facebook. If you look, the strategic stormwater drainage system, which is the swales and so forth, a portion from the middle of the city north drains into the saltwater canals.
Yeah.
Bringing all the silt with it from everywhere. Yeah, so we have areas in the saltwater canals now, and I've got a video of one in particular that there is no water. It's dry.
Built up.
It's built, the silt built, and it's dry. Yeah. So when the canals were originally dug, the finger canals, if you will, were approximately 8 feet deep, and the main channel canals were 12 feet deep. Now you got the main channel canals somewhere around 6 feet deep, and the finger canals, on some of them, the ends are dry. Well, that's a city-owned amenity. Why isn't this? The city has never dredged the canals. They did a spot dredge in front of what's now called the Channel, used to be the Yacht Club, because there was a break in one of the weir systems, and a whole bunch of silt came in and filled up the center of a main canal. So I think they paid $50,000 to a company in St. Augustine to come in and dredge that one spot.
Okay, get the silt out.
Get the silt out.
Okay.
But that's not maintenance for the whole show. That's fix after failure.
Yeah, sure.
We need preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
And we don't have to go and budget the money to dredge and take care of all the canals at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's hit the worst spots. And over time, we slowly maintain through the whole thing. But we need to budget for it because, you know, the house that I have posted on Facebook that has no water behind it now, is that waterfront property? Or is it just another house now, even though there's a seawall behind it?
That's crazy.
You know, so how does it get, if I lived there, I'd be screaming.
Yeah.
And I'd be screaming about being taxed as waterfront when I'm really just mudfront.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
So we have all of those issues, and they're all coming to a head right now.
Sure.
And we need somebody that has been here long enough to see it, to understand it. And, you know, somebody asked me earlier today, well, you know, my dad was a builder. I was a swimming pool contractor. I worked with my dad building houses. So, you know, I've been in the building trade pretty much all my life. So people are screaming about real estate agents and developers and stuff, and they shouldn't be on the city council. And why do I think with a building background that I should skip over that and be allowed to be on the city council? Well, the fact is, if you and I are going to sit down and negotiate a deal, right? We're going to negotiate a deal where I understand your business and you understand my needs. If I know nothing about your business, my negotiation from my side is at a handicap.
Okay.
Right? A big handicap, because I don't know what you're doing, but I want to give you money. Doesn't work that way. So having somebody that, and I'm not necessarily saying that I am 100% pro development and pro all of this stuff that's going on, but I understand what's going on. So when we sit at the table, I don't sit at the table with a lack of knowledge. I sit at the table understanding what they're talking about.
Okay.
So yes, there should be, in my mind, and I fit it exactly in my mind, there should be a person with building experience who's not a builder, who sits there and understands what the other side is doing so we can negotiate a win-win deal.
That sounds good. That sounds like an advantage to your having all that experience and such.
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah. One thing that I was talking about with Peter Johnson, as far as infrastructure goes, is quite frankly, we have a mature population here, and the hospitals, the Quest, I always have an issue. You can't walk into Quest.
No. No.
I tried that one day.
and you spent the day?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I still didn't get sick.
Yeah.
But is that one of the things that's top of mind for you too, as far as the infrastructure goes?
Well, I'll tell you, I was really excited that before everything changed in the world, that Flagler Hospital St. Augustine was going to build a hospital at the end of Palm Coast Parkway right down here.
Yeah.
And it was going to have a maternity ward, and it was going to have a trauma center. But they didn't. Flagler Hospital St. Augustine sold to I think, I can't remember if it was UNF or, yeah, sold to UNF.
Yeah.
So that project went away.
Okay.
So we have the Advent Hospital over by 95.
Yeah.
And we have what they called their overflow hospital, which I don't know what the real name for it is now since it's built, over here by O'Reilly's Auto Parts.
Yeah.
Neither of them have a maternity ward.
Okay.
So if you're an expected mom and you're about to have a baby, get in that car and go, because you either got to get to St. Augustine or Daytona, because it didn't happen in here.
Really?
And if you get in a massive car accident or you're having something that requires a trauma center,
Yeah.
they will bring you straight to either the new hospital or the old hospital here in Palm Coast, and then send you to the trauma center that you need to go to. Well, you've just lost valuable time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with that with my background in law enforcement. A lot of the hospitals there in St. Louis were not trauma hospitals. But they get you to a hospital to try and stabilize you and then get you to
get you to the next one.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of time lost. And, I was at a city council meeting before this new hospital was built, and they were asked, are you going to have a maternity ward? And the answer was that there's not a population level of people in the childbearing years that there's enough babies being born to justify the financial input by them to build a maternity ward. Is that community thought or is that bank account thought?
Sure.
So if I already have a hospital here and I'm building another hospital here to take up for the overflow of the other hospital, maybe I might make 10 or 15 rooms and make a maternity ward.
Sure.
And be part of the community. I'm not saying that Advent Hospital is not part of the community. I just really would have liked to have seen them do something like a maternity ward, especially now that I have a granddaughter, because my son didn't listen to me. He was not supposed to have a kid until I was 80 and a grandfather age. And I have a granddaughter now.
Yeah.
And she's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It's just wrong age for me. I'm a grandfather, and I look at my he's passed away, but I look at my grandfather who was 80, and I'm thinking, there's something wrong here. But anyway.
But you still have the vitality to run around and stuff.
Well, yeah, maybe. But they have to go, right? Well, now they live down there, but they had to go to Daytona to have the baby, because they couldn't have it here in the city they live in.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the number of childbearing age women are in Palm Coast, but it seems to me that, even if it was 5 rooms, 2 rooms, 3, whatever, have something here that serves that portion of the community. And I would have liked to have seen this hospital come in with it. Maybe Advent, as the population shifts, will add, remodel one of their floors and make a maternity ward or something. And I also would like to see a trauma center, because if you've driven on our roads with the crazy people,
that's true.
Yeah,
that is true. Yeah, I always say Florida drivers can't drive, but I'm coming from St. Louis.
Yeah, Florida drivers can't drive, but they're not from Florida. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's like anytime it rains, people just drive like it's not raining. I'm like, that's not going to end well.
Slick oil on the road and everything. They hit that and they're gone.
Yeah, that's crazy. What are some of the other things that you're super passionate about as it relates to this political campaign? I know the infrastructure is huge. What are some of the other things, though?
Well, I think we have an aging community. Sure. Now, our demographic might be changing, that the aging community is not as old, it's not the major portion of the population as it used to be, but we still have an aging community. We don't have a senior center. We have a community center, but we don't have a senior center. Of course, again, that takes money and takes maintenance, but it's something to, what we need is we need somebody who has been politically involved with our government and city council, and who has been greatly involved in the community to be a bridge between the two.
Sure.
And I have been involved in the city council and everything for several years now. At a majority of the city council meetings, I know the people sitting up there. I'm versed on the way things work in the city, but I've also had, as far as the people are, the citizens of our city, the residents, I've had open houses at my home to discuss issues with people on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
I've rented the community center on a couple of occasions and had, we'll call them town halls, even though I'm not in government, to allow people to bring out their ideas and let me know which way things should be heading in our city.
Sure.
I've been on I was previously on the board of directors of Flagler Open Arms Recovery Services. I'm currently on the board of directors of the Flagler Drug Court Foundation.
Yeah.
Issues like this that involve you in the city, involve you with the people, also involved with the government, and be a bridge to bring the two together so that we can bring back transparency, because there's a lot of questions on whether or not things are happening that the public really knows about or should know about that they don't know about. And I think a bridge between the two. And I think I'm the only one qualified that's running right now that has the experience on both sides to be that bridge.
Real quick, for maybe just me, I don't know if anybody else will be watching that has this question. What's the difference between just a community center and a senior center? Is just one is exclusive to seniors?
Community center you can rent to do whatever you want to do in the various rooms that they have there. A senior center is a smaller spot where seniors can get together, and mahjong seems to be a big thing that seniors like to play, right? Yeah. So you have a place where they don't have to pay for the room.
Okay.
And they can go and they can have their mahjong. They can have different functions that are things that seniors like.
Sure.
Maybe a ballroom dancing thing or whatever. Just something that seniors can enjoy.
Nice.
That they don't have to pay more for, like renting a room or whatever.
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying to rent the room is outrageously expensive at the community center, but shouldn't have to. Just have a place that's set aside for them. We're building facilities for, the sports facilities for people that are younger, soccer fields, football fields, all that. We got that going on. For people that are a little more middle-aged, we got the golfing, the tennis, the pickleball. People who are elderly seniors, what do they got?
All right. There needs to be something where they can have community.
Have community. Why not?
Yeah. Fair enough. I actually have some questions. I sent these earlier because, again, I don't want this to be a gotcha session, so I'm going to pull them up here. I sent some questions before to Peter Johnson. He was like, I don't do well with canned answers, but I'm not saying that yours is a canned answer. Like I said, it's not a gotcha session. I want to just talk to people.
Well, that's cool. But I don't have any canned answers because it changes every day.
Very good. So there's a couple that are the exact same ones that I asked Peter Johnson, but there was one that I can't ask you because it doesn't fit you. The one that I can't ask you is one was like his age for Peter Johnson. Like, is that a hindrance or whatever? And obviously,
I'll tell you what. What are you trying to say? I'm old.
You're not in your 30s. Like
I'll tell you what. I've met Peter Johnson, and I think he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah,
I really do. He's intelligent. He's on the ball, but I think he needs more wisdom, which comes with age. He needs to have a little more understanding of the way things are going, and nothing against him. I'd like to see him, if he doesn't make it this time, I'd like to see him, recoup and run again in the future. I think he's a great guy. I think that he needs a little more background, a little more understanding. He's against the development.
Sure.
But you can't be,
Okay.
Once you sit there, if you're sitting there as mayor and you're against the developers, you're going to shut off any money from Tallahassee. You're going to shut off investment money from developers, and you're going to shut off the developers. And you're only going to be able to rely on tax money, which means you're going to have to boost the taxes through the ceiling. And I'm not saying I'm all pro-development. What I'm saying is you need to allow for all of it.
Yeah.
But you need to do it in a quality over quantity maintained way.
You have to have that understanding as well.
You have to have that understanding. And he's getting it.
Yeah.
I don't think he quite has it yet.
Sure.
But nothing against him. I think he's a great guy, and I like to see him run again.
He's supposed to take me hunting.
There you go.
I've never been hunting. So that would be cool. So the first question is the exact first one that I sent to him. Will you be pushing for a full forensic audit of the city?
100%.
Okay.
Not because I'm looking for crime or looking for wrongdoing, but there's a saying that I was told many years ago that holds true forever. And it is, people don't respect what you respect. They respect what you inspect.
Okay.
So a forensic audit, if your department knows we're coming to look, you're going to shape up.
That's true.
You know? So I think a forensic audit should be done, an independent forensic audit, not one that the city controls and says, okay, on Thursday you go look at these guys. No.
Shift things around.
Yeah, no. A completely independent forensic audit where they come in and they tear things apart and see, because I don't know if there is a great amount of waste, but there always is waste.
Sure.
And so there's ways that maybe we can shift this money to infrastructure over there. Here, going with infrastructure again.
Sure.
Maybe not, but we will never know unless we do that audit.
Sure.
So yeah, 100%. And then if we do find criminal stuff, down the road they go.
Yeah, sure.
You know, wherever it takes them.
So the second question, exact same one I sent to Peter. How will you fix the disconnect between the constituents and the city council?
That's the bridge I was talking about.
Yeah.
Because I've been involved on both sides,
Sure.
heavily involved for years on both sides. I have a pretty good understanding of both sides.
Sure.
And because of that, you know, I won't sit there at the mayor's dais looking at the people and saying, all right, your 3 minutes is up, go sit down.
Yeah.
Or yell at somebody that's not saying what I want them to say. And,
Sure.
or, you know, there's one lady, I didn't hear this happen, so this is hearsay, third party.
Sure.
But just one lady who said she was walking her dog and attacked by a neighbor's dog, and her dog was killed and she was heavily hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And the mayor, in some form or another, she said, called her a liar.
Mm.
Now, I don't know that he used those exact words, and it might be her interpretation of what he said. But our current mayor is not really good with interfacing with the public.
Okay.
You know, when he was campaigning before, he called himself a data-driven executive.
Okay.
And that's great, but not everything goes by the data. Sometimes you got to fudge for other stuff.
Sure.
And he has disconnected himself from the people because he's not interfacing with the people. Now they're doing the town hall things, which I tried to get to start, 4 years ago.
Sure.
But it's also an election season, so you got to question why that's happening.
Sure. Gotcha.
But the answer is the bridge.
Yeah. And does that kind of relate back to the first question of transparency?
100%. If you're bridging and talking and maintaining and having town halls and a lot of interaction with the people, it's transparent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there's going to be some things that you can't share with the public until it becomes more solidified on the government end. But
Sure.
But just in general, the people are shocked each time at a city council meeting to learn new things that are happening that nobody ever knew was happening.
Sure.
For instance, the city manager being fired. And,
Yeah. It would be shocking.
It would be shocking. And then later, for the mayor, I agreed with the mayor when he was sitting. I didn't agree with, the way he fired her or whatever.
Yeah,
but I agreed with him when he was sitting there saying that he thought the city was going to be growing and we needed somebody with more experience than what she had. There's no argument there. Okay. And then he does an interview with Flagler Live and says, yeah, she was fired for political reasons and something to the effect that he had asked her not to bring out the utility rate hike that was discussed until after the election.
Sure.
Well, that's not a reason to fire somebody, but that's what he said.
Mm.
And so where's the transparency there? Where's the interaction with the public there? Oh, she's telling the public things that I don't want them to know until after the election because it might hurt my run.
Sure.
No.
Yeah. It seems a little disingenuous and kind of, what's a good word to say it? Manipulative?
Yeah.
Whereas transparency.
And transparent would say, hey, this might hurt my run, but here's the facts.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about your reelection and all of that stuff and start worrying about the people.
Sure. Sure. I have one last prepared question, and then you can talk about anything that we may not have brought up in this conversation.
We could quite a bit.
Yes. So the last question. So you're running for office. You've ran for office before. Some people have thought or been concerned about, can you get it done?
Well, that's what we're about to find out.
So kind of tell me.
Well, I'll tell you, there has been a huge, let me back up. If you can't fight somebody's platform, if you have a good, strong platform, then you have to destroy their reputation and personality in order to get people to swing to a platform that might not be as good. I've been through that, you know. I've done all kinds of things I didn't know about. but yeah, because I never gave up.
Sure.
I went to city council meetings when I wasn't running for anything, and I had absolutely no intention of running for anything again.
Yeah.
I had no intention of running for mayor now until I just saw the way the city was going, and people were prodding me along, and I said, you know what? I got to try. I mean, why run for an office, not win, and then just disappear? If that's the case, then you didn't really mean to do what you wanted to do. You need to continue on, maybe not in office, but in the background, you know, well, not even in the background, in the foreground, but not in office, pushing what you were pushing when you were running. I've done that every year since I started this, whereas I don't know any other candidate who was not elected for our city council that continued on after they lost an election.
It shows you have a vested interest in the community.
It's the community. The community. It's all about the community. Okay. It's Abraham Lincoln ran 8 times.
Really?
Yeah. For different offices, but 8 and didn't win every time, but kept on going and became president. I don't want to be president. I don't want to be above mayor. I have no interest in county commission or anything. And I'm running for mayor because that's the open seat in my district.
Yeah.
I want to get in there and be a voice of the people at the dais, to be the bridge that makes the difference.
Fair enough. Any closing thoughts that you might have for us?
We have hit so many topics
today. Did we talk about everything?
I think we did. I don't know what we missed, but if we did, somebody will bring it up.
But yeah, it's just a casual conversation. Like I told you before, it's not an I got you session. It's supposed to speak to another candidate next week. And anybody else that wants to come on here, I don't know. I don't have anything political on my social media. If you probably noticed that my first political piece was really Peter Johnson. And that was because a friend was like, hey, will you interview him? Fine. But since I did with Peter Johnson, I want to show that I am completely neutral and have everybody on. And
it should be that way. And, we're running for city council, mayor, city council. And it's a nonpartisan race, right? So instead of talking, we're talking about Republicans, or we're talking about Democrats, I happen to be Republican on the national level, but here we're talking about community.
Sure.
And it really has to be about the whole community.
Sure. Fair enough. Well, you want to sign us out?
It's community, it's the citizens, it's the residents. The government is the municipal government counts all the way up, actually, from every board, every council, every commission, all the way up to president. All of it is servants of the people. The people have to be first.
I like that. And one of the things I like is, as far as a title I've heard not too long ago, is a servant leader.
Servant leader, yeah.
Because when you get puffed up, you're not serving anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. Exactly. And sometimes you got to have your feet put in the fire to get yourself back.
Sure.
Because I'm sure there's times that people start thinking, oh, look at this. No, it doesn't work that way. Sure. It's for the people.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate it too. Thank you very much.
Anything else you want to say to the people?
Vote for Alan Lowe for mayor of Palm Coast.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Huge thanks to Mike of Good Vibes Nutrition for allowing his space for meaningful conversations like this.